Staff Sergeant Marcus Rivera pressed his back against the crumbling concrete wall, sweat dripping down his face despite the cool Afghan morning air. The sound of his own breathing seemed impossibly loud in his ears as he counted the seconds between enemy rifle bursts. 3 members of his patrol team were pinned down behind an overturned market cart 20 meters to his left, while he and Private Johnson had taken cover behind what remained of a bombed-out building. The mission had started like any other reconnaissance patrol in Helmand Province. Rivera's team of 8 soldiers had been tasked with checking reports of Taliban movement near a remote village called Karazimala. Intelligence suggested the area was clear, but Rivera had learned not to trust intelligence reports completely during his 2 previous deployments. His instincts had kept him alive through countless patrols, and today those same instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. The attack had come without warning just as they entered the village outskirts. One moment, they were walking in standard formation along a dusty road lined with mud brick compounds, and the next moment the world exploded around them. Muzzle flashes erupted from rooftops, doorways, and windows in a coordinated assault that spoke of careful planning and preparation. Rivera had immediately recognized the signs of a well-executed ambush. The enemy had waited until his patrol was in the perfect kill zone before opening fire. No escape routes, overlapping fields of fire, and multiple elevated positions. It was textbook Taliban tactics, executed with deadly precision. Private Johnson, barely 20 years old and on his first deployment, was shaking as he gripped his M4 rifle. Rivera could see the fear in the young soldier's eyes, the same look he had seen in mirrors during his own first firefight years ago. Blood was seeping through a makeshift bandage wrapped around Johnson's left arm, where a bullet had grazed him during the initial seconds of the ambush. "How many do you count, Johnson?" Rivera whispered, trying to keep his voice steady and professional despite their desperate situation. Johnson carefully peered around the corner of their concrete shelter, ducking back quickly as another burst of automatic fire chipped away pieces of the wall inches from his head. "At least 12, maybe 15 contacts, Sergeant. They've got us in crossfire from 3 different buildings.
All
I can
units
see
prepare for
muzzle
engagement.
flashes from the
Stay
2-story
sharp.
compound directly ahead and the market building to our right." Rivera nodded grimly. He had already done his own assessment and reached similar conclusions. The enemy had positioned themselves expertly, using the village's natural layout to create an inescapable trap. Every time one of his soldiers tried to move or return fire, they were met with coordinated shots from multiple directions. He pressed his radio handset, trying once again to reach headquarters. Static filled his earpiece, punctuated by the distant sound of gunfire from his own position bleeding through the transmission. For the past 20 minutes, he had been unable to establish clear communication with their forward operating base. The enemy had likely deployed jamming equipment, or the surrounding mountains were blocking their signals. Across the narrow street, Rivera could see Corporal Martinez and 2 other team members taking cover behind an old Soviet-era truck that had been abandoned years ago. Martinez caught his eye and held up 3 fingers, then pointed toward the building where most of the enemy fire was originating. Rivera understood immediately. Martinez had identified at least 3 shooters in the main compound, confirming Rivera's own observations. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. They were outnumbered at least 2 to 1, possibly more. Their ammunition supplies were limited to what they carried for a standard patrol. Medical supplies were minimal since this was supposed to be a routine reconnaissance mission. Most critically, no one knew their exact location or current status. Rivera checked his watch. 23 minutes had passed since the ambush began. Standard operating procedures required patrol teams to check in every 30 minutes during active operations. When they failed to make their next scheduled contact, headquarters would eventually realize something was wrong. But eventually could mean hours in military bureaucracy, and they did not have hours. A new burst of gunfire erupted from their left flank, and Rivera realized with growing alarm that their situation was becoming even worse. The enemy was attempting to maneuver around their position, using the maze of village buildings and alleyways to gain better firing angles. Soon they would be completely surrounded with no chance of fighting their way out. Johnson was breathing heavily, his face pale from blood loss and shock. Rivera knew the young soldier needed medical attention soon, but moving from their current position would expose them to deadly crossfire. They were trapped in a tactical nightmare with no obvious solutions. The Taliban fighters were disciplined and patient, content to maintain their positions while gradually tightening the noose around the American patrol. Rivera had fought these same enemy forces enough times to respect their tactical abilities. They were not random insurgents firing wildly from concealment. These were experienced fighters who understood small unit tactics and knew how to use terrain to their advantage. Another 20 minutes passed with sporadic gunfire as both sides maintained their positions. Rivera was starting to accept the possibility that his team might not survive this engagement. He had seen enough combat to recognize when tactical situations were beyond recovery. Unless something changed dramatically, they would eventually run out of ammunition and be overrun. He was mentally preparing for a final defensive stand when his radio crackled to life with an unfamiliar transmission. Through the static and interference, he heard something that made his heart skip a beat. It was a woman's voice, speaking with calm professionalism that cut through the chaos of battle like a knife through silk. Bravo 7, this is Falcon 6-2. I show your position under effective enemy fire. Request immediate situation report, over. Rivera stared at his radio handset in disbelief. He had never heard this call sign before, and female voices on tactical radio networks in their area of operations were extremely rare. But someone, somewhere, had managed to reach them through the communication blackout that had lasted for nearly an hour. He keyed his microphone with trembling fingers, hardly daring to believe that help might actually be available. Falcon 6-2, this is Bravo 7. We are 8 personnel pinned down by approximately 15 enemy fighters in coordinated ambush positions. We have 1 casualty requiring medical attention and are running low on ammunition. Our position is grid reference. Rivera rattled off their precise coordinates while bullets continued to snap overhead. The female voice responded immediately, her tone revealing nothing but professional competence. Copy all, Bravo 7. Hold your current positions and maintain defensive fire. Help is inbound. Estimated time of arrival, 15 minutes. Do you copy? Rivera felt a surge of hope that he had not experienced since the ambush began. Roger, Falcon 6-2. We copy 15 minutes. Be advised, enemy has elevated positions with overlapping fields of fire. Recommend extreme caution on approach. Understood, Bravo 7. Falcon 6-2 out. The radio fell silent again, leaving Rivera to wonder who this mysterious Falcon 6-2 might be and what kind of help could possibly reach them in 15 minutes. But for the first time in over an hour, he began to believe that his team might actually survive this day. Johnson looked at him with questioning eyes, having heard only one side of the radio conversation. Rivera managed a grim smile as he checked his rifle and prepared to hold their position for 15 more minutes. Help's coming, Johnson. We just need to keep these bastards busy a little while longer. Captain Sarah Chun adjusted her flight controls as her AH-64 Apache attack helicopter approached the coordinates provided by the trap patrol. Through her advanced targeting systems, she could clearly see the tactical situation unfolding below. 8 American soldiers were pinned down in multiple locations throughout the small Afghan village, while at least 14 enemy fighters maintained superior positions from rooftops and fortified buildings. Chun had been conducting a routine patrol mission along the Pakistani border, when she intercepted the fragmented radio transmissions from the ambushed ground unit. Standard protocol required her to report the situation to higher command and wait for orders, but the urgency in the ground commander's voice had convinced her to take immediate action. Sometimes in combat, following procedures meant watching good soldiers die while bureaucrats debated response options. Her co-pilot and gunner, Chief Warrant Officer Mike Torres, was already identifying priority targets through a sophisticated optics system. Torres had flown combat missions for 12 years and could read battlefield situations like others read newspapers. His calm voice filled their intercom system as he provided tactical assessments. I count 14 confirmed enemy positions spread across 3 main buildings. They've got overlapping fields of fire covering all the American positions. Ground troops are completely pinned down with no movement options. Looks like a professionally planned ambush, not random contact. Chen nodded as she maneuvered their Apache into an attack position. The village was surrounded by steep mountains that limited their approach options, but also provided concealment until they were ready to engage. She had learned to use terrain to her advantage during multiple combat deployments, turning geographical obstacles into tactical opportunities. Enemy fighters appear to be carrying small arms and at least 2 machine gun positions. Torres continued his assessment. No visible anti-aircraft weapons, but we should assume they have RPGs or man-portable surface-to-air missiles. These guys were prepared for this engagement. Chun switched her radio to the frequency being used by the ground patrol and transmitted her call sign. Bravo 7, this is Falcon 6-2. I show your position under effective enemy fire. Request immediate situation report, over. The response came immediately, filled with relief and desperation. The ground commander quickly provided tactical details that confirmed what Chun was observing through her targeting systems. 8 soldiers trapped in 3 separate locations, 1 wounded, ammunition running low, and enemy forces attempting to maneuver for better positions. After acknowledging the ground unit situation, Chen began planning her attack approach. The key to close air support in urban environments was precision. She needed to eliminate enemy threats while ensuring no friendly fire incidents. American soldiers were positioned dangerously close to enemy locations, requiring careful target selection and extremely accurate weapons delivery. Torres, I want you to prioritize the machine gun positions first. They're providing the heaviest suppressive fire against our guys. After we eliminate those threats, we'll work on the individual rifle positions systematically. Torres adjusted his targeting systems and began locking onto the first priority target. Roger. I have good sight picture on the machine gun position in the 2-story compound. 30mm cannon ready for precision engagement. Chun brought their Apache into position, using a small hill to mask their approach until the final moment. Surprise would be crucial for their initial attack. Once the enemy realized they were under air assault, remaining fighters would take better cover and become much harder to eliminate. The radio crackled again with transmission from the ground patrol. Falcon 6-2, be advised enemy fighters are attempting to flank our position from the north. We may be overrun before you arrive. Chun felt her pulse quicken. The tactical situation was deteriorating faster than anticipated. She made a command decision that went against standard engagement procedures. Bravo 7, we are beginning our attack run now. Keep your heads down and mark your positions with smoke if you have it. She pushed their Apache over the concealing hill and dove toward the village at maximum speed. The element of surprise would last only seconds once they were visible, and those seconds could determine whether the ground patrol survived. Torres opened fire immediately with their 30mm cannon, sending precision rounds into the first machine gun position. The sound of exploding concrete and twisted metal echoed across the village as enemy fighters scrambled to respond to this unexpected threat from above. Chun banked hard left to avoid potential return fire while giving Torres clean shot opportunities at the second machine gun position. The Apache's advanced fire control systems allowed them to engage multiple targets rapidly while maintaining tactical movement. First machine gun position neutralized, Torres reported calmly. Engaging second priority target now. Below them, Chun could see American soldiers beginning to move from their concealed positions as enemy suppressive fire decreased dramatically. The psychological effect of close air support was often as important as the physical destruction of enemy positions. Ground troops fought differently when they knew deadly accurate fire support was available. Enemy rifle fire erupted from multiple building positions as Taliban fighters realized they were under attack from an American helicopter. Muzzle flashes sparkled from windows, and rooftops as automatic weapons tried unsuccessfully to engage their rapidly moving aircraft. Chun maneuvered aggressively to avoid concentrated ground fire, while maintaining Torres's ability to engage remaining threats. Flying close air support required split-second timing and absolute coordination between pilot and gunner. One mistake could result in friendly fire casualties or loss of their own aircraft. Second machine gun position destroyed, Torres announced. I count 8 remaining individual fighter positions. Ground troops are beginning to advance on enemy locations. Chen could see through her optics that the American patrol was taking advantage of reduced enemy fire to improve their tactical positions. Professional soldiers recognized opportunity when it appeared and acted accordingly. The tide of battle was shifting, but remaining enemy fighters were still dangerous and well-positioned. A new voice appeared on their radio frequency. Falcon 6-2, this is Bravo 7 Actual. Outstanding work on those machine gun positions. Can you assist with remaining rifle positions in the eastern compound? We're preparing to assault from the west. Chen recognized the tactical opportunity immediately. If they could suppress remaining enemy fighters while the ground patrol maneuvered for assault positions, the combined arms approach would eliminate remaining threats quickly and efficiently. Roger, Bravo 7. We'll maintain suppressive fire on eastern positions. Execute your assault when ready. She positioned their Apache to provide overwatch for the ground assault, while Torres continued engaging individual enemy fighters. The coordination between air and ground forces was functioning perfectly, each element supporting the other's tactical objectives. Through her targeting system, Chun watched American soldiers moving with professional competence toward remaining enemy positions. These were experienced combat troops who understood how to use air support effectively. The ambush that had seemed hopeless 30 minutes earlier was rapidly becoming a tactical victory for American forces. But Chen knew the battle was not over yet. Remaining enemy fighters would likely fight to the death rather than surrender, and desperate fighters were often the most dangerous. She maintained constant vigilance for threats while supporting the ground assault that would determine the final outcome of this engagement. The radio crackled with updates from the ground commander as his soldiers closed in on the last enemy positions. Chun felt satisfaction at being able to provide critical support to fellow service members in desperate situations. This was exactly why she had chosen to fly combat missions instead of safer rear area assignments. Looking good down there, Bravo 7, she transmitted. We'll maintain overwatch until you secure the area. The final phase of the battle unfolded with swift precision as Rivera led his soldiers in a coordinated assault on the remaining enemy positions. The devastating accuracy of the Apache's suppressive fire had broken the Taliban fighters' ability to maintain their coordinated defense. What had been a perfectly executed ambush 20 minutes earlier was now collapsing into individual pockets of desperate resistance. Rivera moved with practiced efficiency, using hand signals to coordinate his team's advance while the female pilot maintained overwatch from above. Corporal Martinez and his 2 soldiers approached the eastern compound from the south while Rivera and the recovered Johnson flanked from the west. The wounded private had insisted on participating in the assault despite his arm injury, proving the kind of determination that made good soldiers into great ones. Falcon 6-2, this is Bravo 7. Rivera spoke into his radio while advancing toward the largest remaining building. We have visual on 3 enemy fighters in the main compound. Request precision fire on the second-floor windows to support our final assault. The response came immediately in that same calm, professional female voice that had been their salvation. Roger, Bravo 7. 30mm rounds incoming on second-floor positions. Take cover for 10 seconds. Rivera and his soldiers pressed themselves against the compound wall as the Apache's cannon rounds struck with surgical accuracy. Concrete and debris showered down around them, but the precision of the air support was remarkable. The helicopter crew was placing devastating fire within meters of friendly positions without endangering American soldiers. When the cannon fire ceased, Rivera led his team through the compound's main entrance while Martinez's group entered from the rear. The building clearing operation that followed was textbook urban warfare, each room methodically checked and secured. They found 2 wounded enemy fighters who surrendered immediately, along with evidence that this had indeed been a carefully planned ambush rather than chance encounter. Building secure, Martinez reported over their tactical frequency. 2 enemy prisoners requiring medical attention. No additional casualties on our side. Rivera felt tremendous relief as he realized that his entire team had survived the engagement that could easily have ended in disaster. Johnson's arm wound was painful but not serious, and the rest of his soldiers were uninjured despite the intensity of the firefight. Professional training and exceptional air support had turned a potential catastrophe into a tactical victory. The Apache helicopters settled into a hover pattern above the village center as Rivera's team consolidated their position and treated both friendly wounded and enemy prisoners. Military regulations required medical care for all casualties regardless of their affiliation, and Rivera's soldiers applied first aid to the captured Taliban fighters with the same professionalism they showed toward their own people. Bravo 7, this is Falcon 6-2, the female pilot transmitted. Area appears secure from our observation. Do you require medical evacuation for your casualties? Rivera assessed Johnson's condition and determined that the wound, while bloody, was not life-threatening. The private was alert and mobile, capable of walking to an extraction point when transportation arrived. Negative on immediate medical evacuation. Falcon 6-2. Our casualty is stable and ambulatory. We'll need transportation back to base when available. Roger. I've already called for ground transportation. ETA 45 minutes to your location. Rivera realized he had never properly thanked the pilot who had saved their lives. Military culture emphasized professional communication during combat operations, but basic human gratitude was also important. Falcon 6-2, this is Bravo 7. I want to express our sincere appreciation for your actions today. You saved 8 American lives with outstanding flying and shooting. There was a brief pause before the response came, and Rivera thought he detected a slight change in the pilot's tone. Thank you, Bravo 7. That means a great deal coming from professional ground troops. It was an honor to provide support for soldiers in contact. As they waited for transportation, Rivera learned more details about their rescue from radio communications with headquarters. Captain Sarah Chun had been conducting border patrol operations when she intercepted their emergency transmissions. Rather than waiting for authorization to engage, she had taken immediate action based on her assessment of their desperate tactical situation. Her quick thinking and aggressive response had prevented what could have been a significant loss of American personnel. The Taliban ambush had been expertly planned and executed, designed to eliminate an entire patrol before help could arrive. Only Chin's decision to engage immediately rather than following standard procedures had disrupted their plan. Johnson approached Rivera as they organized their equipment for extraction. Despite his bandaged arm, the young soldier was grinning with the satisfaction of having survived his first major firefight. Sergeant, do you think we'll get to meet that pilot when we get back to base? Rivera smiled at the question. Military protocols usually kept helicopter crews and ground units separated, but this situation had been unusual in many ways. I don't know, Johnson, but I hope so. We owe her a debt that can't be repaid with just radio transmissions. The sound of approaching vehicles indicated that their transportation was arriving ahead of schedule. 2 armored Humvees appeared on the village outskirts, moving cautiously but confidently toward their position. The sight of friendly forces approaching their location was always welcome after combat operations. As Rivera's team prepared to board their transportation, the Apache helicopter made a final pass over their position. Chen's voice came through their radio one last time during this mission. Bravo 7, this is Falcon 6-2. Safe travels back to base. It was a privilege working with professional soldiers today. Rivera keyed his microphone for the final transmission of their engagement. Falcon 6-2, the privilege was entirely ours. Thank you for bringing us home. The helicopter disappeared over the surrounding mountains, leaving Rivera and his team to contemplate how quickly military situations could change from desperate to victorious. 30 minutes earlier, they had been preparing for a last stand against overwhelming odds. Now they were riding safely back to base with all personnel accounted for and mission accomplished. 3 days later, Rivera was surprised to receive orders to report to the base commander's office in dress uniform. He assumed the meeting would involve a debriefing about the village engagement, standard procedure after significant combat contact. Instead, he found himself standing before Colonel Martinez along with Captain Sarah Chun, who was also wearing dress uniform. Sergeant Rivera, the colonel began formally, I wanted you to meet Captain Chun personally. Her actions during your recent engagement exemplify the finest traditions of military service and inter-service cooperation. Rivera saluted both officers and then extended his hand to Chun. She was smaller than he had expected from her voice, but her eyes held the confidence and competence that he had heard through radio transmissions during their firefight. Captain Chun, my entire team owes you our lives. Your decision to engage immediately rather than waiting for authorization made the difference between survival and catastrophe. Chun shook his hand firmly while maintaining eye contact. Sergeant Rivera, your team's professional performance under extreme pressure was equally impressive. The way you coordinated ground assault while under fire demonstrated exceptional leadership. The colonel smiled as he watched the mutual respect between the two combat veterans. This engagement has been selected as a case study for inter-service cooperation and close air support procedures. Both of your actions will be used to train future military personnel in effective combat coordination. Rivera learned that Chun would be receiving the Distinguished Flying Cross for her actions, while his team would be awarded Bronze Stars for valor under enemy fire. But more important than medals was the knowledge that professional military training and quick thinking had prevented tragedy. As they left the colonel's office together, Rivera finally had opportunity to ask the question that had bothered him since their rescue. Captain, what made you decide to engage immediately rather than calling for permission first? Chun considered the question carefully before responding. Sergeant, I've been in enough combat situations to recognize when soldiers are in mortal danger. Sometimes military protocol has to take second place to saving American lives. I knew your team would be overrun if they waited for bureaucratic approval. Rivera nodded with complete understanding. Combat veterans developed instincts that couldn't be taught in training manuals or military schools. Chun had recognized their desperate situation and acted accordingly, putting mission accomplishment ahead of administrative convenience. 6 months later, Rivera received word that Captain Chun had been promoted to Major and assigned as an instructor pilot at the Army's aviation school. Her combat experience and proven decision-making abilities made her an ideal candidate for training the next generation of helicopter pilots. Rivera himself was promoted to Sergeant First Class and assigned to train new infantry squads in advanced combat tactics. During his classes, he often used their rescue as an example of how different military services could work together effectively when professional soldiers put mission success ahead of bureaucratic boundaries. The village engagement became legendary among both infantry and aviation units, proof that American military training and equipment were most effective when operated by personnel who understood that protecting fellow service members was always the highest priority. Rivera never forgot the calm female voice that had reached through chaos and fear to offer hope when hope seemed impossible.